today's Tanya. Okay? It's a very interesting Yeres HaKedesh. And the most interesting part of the Yeres HaKedesh is the pasuk with which the Yeres HaKedesh begins. Eita erka salma v'gem, you test. The Eibush that wraps himself in light like a garment. Now, Chevra, what is a garment? Usually, a garment conceals and reveals, right? But you put on clothing, they cover, but they present. The Eibush uses Oyer Ein Sof like a lavush. In other words, so the Eibush that Oyer is already, the Gabi the Eibush that Oyer is already in for Tzimtzum and lavush. This is the last time these words, Eiter Kasam, become relevant. This whole Yeres HaKedesh talks about Teira. And he never goes back directly to the words Eiter Kasam. Although if you learn this Yeres HaKedesh carefully, you'll understand that this whole Yeres HaKedesh is explaining the idea that Torah has layers. Inner layers and outer layers. Higher layers and lower layers. Ultimately, Torah's Eid Ein Sof. And our access to the Eid Ein Sof is through the different levushim. We relate to the Eid Ein Sof through Seichel, through Limud. Some people relate to the Eid Ein Sof through what's called the Re'iyah, Ruach HaKedesh. The highest people at the Eid Ein Sof through what's called Nevuah, which is even higher than that. So there's different layers that become the levushim for Torah that allow us to access Alakus. And the oil itself is a malbush. So as I'm saying to you, even though the Alter Rebbe is not going to go back to this pasuk whatsoever, l'chayda he's actually explaining it. Okay, so this the Yeres HaKedesh is on Yifan Torah. And again, I'll give you a short akdama. The question is the Yeres HaKedesh is, how do you reconcile Nevuah and Ruach HaKedesh? Everybody knows that Ruach HaKedesh is lower than Nevuah. Yet we see that Baalei Ruach HaKedesh were able to see things that was much, much, much higher than the Madrega that Nevi'im were able to see it. You'll hear in a minute. And of course, the Rebbe is going to answer, they see higher, but through a different malbush, through a different lavush. And the Nevi'im see lower, but they're seeing a much more atzmizik inyan. He said like this. Hine belakute teire shel ha'ariz el pashas kisisa. And Kurteira is a pashas kisisa, and I'm willing to bet that it's on the pasuk hine mokamiti. Upashas vayikra, kasav, it's written. Ki asagas Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom, Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the greatest of all the Nevi'im. His reach. In other words, how did he come to have a shaykhis in the lakus? Loi hoisa, it could not be bebchinas pnimi is the chachmei law, in the inner dimension of chachmei law. Hanikra abba datzilos, which is the chachma vatzilos. Moshe Rabbeinu, even though his neshama came from chachma datzilos, he was not able to see chachma datzilos directly. The light is too potent, and the light is too plain. Because kebesfiras hakesed, certainly he was not able to see sfiras hakesed shalamai lamimena, which is even higher than atzilos. Hanikra arech ampin, which is called arech. And you know, of course, arech ampin means the big panim, the big world. The eid ampin means the small world, and arech ampin is the big world. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't see arech ampin. Kiyim says that these are the only way Moshe Rabbeinu could come to see a lakus b'derech nevuah was b'bechim zacharayim the chachma, the rear of chachma. That's first of all Hamalubeshes bebina, the way it was garmented by bina. So right away you have an example of Eita Erka Salma. Bina becomes a levush for Chachma. Second of all, Hamislabeshes b'zayin tzvei tzechtein l'shenikrezo. He didn't even see Chachma be'levush in bina. Bina was then mislabesh in the 7 meters, which is called Zah, which is Seidat Teira. According to Kabbalah, Teira shebeksav is Zah, right? Shma mini Teira zevicha, val tizish Teira zimecha is Teira shebeksav tish balpeh. Ze'er ampen is Zochar is Teira shebeksav. Moreover, umispashetes at Seid Dalet Sfidas Tachtein shehem nehim. In the Midas itself, Moshe couldn't even see Chacham, which is Melubish, and Bina, which is Melubish in the 7 meters directly, only the way it came into the lower 4 meters, which are Netzach, Yisei, and Malchus. So it says in Kisvei Arizal, V'sham hoisa sagas nevuah se b'chinas pnimis. That's Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see a nevuah in a revealed way. That the b'chinas pnimis is in him, the inner dimension of the him. Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see it in Sof. Okay? But to see it in Sof, you have to be very edel. And then in Sof, to be very begilui. And as I explained to you this morning in the Shir, gilui is always tzimtzum. The sufficiency, the enough gilui to permit, to allow for Moshe Rabbeinu to experience Ein Sof was dafke, the way Chacham came into Bina, and the way it came into the Midas, and it ended up in the Nehim, and only the Moshe Rabbeinu could see it. That's it. Aval Amaylam in Nehim, higher than Nehim. Shum hasaga bepnimis, Moshe Rabbeinu could not internalize the Ein Sof. Ki'im bebchinas acherayim, the Chacham, only the rear of Chachma. Hamalubeshes bebina, which is the Lubish in Bina. Hamalubeshes u'mispashetes teich pnimius denehim, which was manifest and expanded in the inner dimensions in him, besaid according to the mystical secret of nevles chachma shalamayla teda. What falls, navel means what falls from the chachma of above comes down to the teda. She bechina zeir ampa, which is madrega of zeir ampa. So Moshe Rabbeinu could see the pnimius of Nehim and the acherayim of the whole Zohar. And the whole Zohar, this is Nevles, Chochma, Shemal, Teda. Chochma is much higher than Teda. Nevles, what falls from Chochma into all of Zohar, this is the Teda. And Moshe Rabbeinu's connection to the Teda itself was acherayim. In other words, to say technically speaking, Moshe could see the pnimius of Nehim and the acherayim of Ze'er Ampin. And that's it. That's all. Moshe Rabbeinu could see the pnimius of Nehim and only the acharayim of Ze'er Ampin, like it says in the pasuk of Fana Leiro. So I have a kasha which is mamish l'chayra irrevocable. Harinema, the Torah says, "V'leikom navi eid b'Yisrael k'Moshe." There never has been or will be again another like Moshe Rabbeinu. So the question is, how could Arizal have understood and perceived more than him? We said many biyurim on Kabbalah, in more deep levels, afilu b'sfiras or madreges rabbis, in sfiras and many steps, which is even higher than Chochma and even higher than V'kesed Atzilus. And if Moshe Rabbeinu's pnimius was only Nihi of Atzilus, and he got Chochma through Levush of Bina, through Levush of Zah, through Levush of Nehim, how could it be that other Ba'al Ruach HaKodesh, other Mekubalim saw so much higher than him? This is the Shaila. Okay, and of course the teretz is going to be, he saw lower with fewer levushim. They saw higher with more levushim. That's the Hakdama Eiter Kasam.